This pain may look like heartbreak. This numbness may feel like moving on. But it's not what you think, because what you're really running from isn't just loss. It's the shadow of the love you buried with it. There's a part of you that disappeared when they left. You might not talk about it, you might not even realize it's missing, but it's there, in the silence between your thoughts, in the cold weight behind your smile, in the way your chest tightens when you're alone. We like to think loss is something we get over. That time, distractions, and maybe someone new will fix it. But Carl Jung would tell you something different. He would say that when love ends, something deeper gets pushed into the unconscious. Not just the memory of someone, but parts of yourself. Think about who you were when you loved them. The way you opened, the way you felt, the way you hoped. That version of you, the one that was soft, trusting, maybe even a little naive, got hurt. And to protect yourself, you locked it away. You buried not just the love, but the version of yourself who believed in it. That version became part of your shadow. The shadow, Jung said, is made of everything we hide. Not just the dark, shameful parts, but also the beautiful ones we were told were too much, too vulnerable, too risky. And love, real, deep love, requires vulnerability. So when that love is lost, our natural reaction is to close the door on that vulnerability. We say it's weakness. We say we've moved on. But what we've really done is amputated something essential, and that's where the shadow begins to form. You might notice it in small ways. You find it hard to connect deeply again. You keep things surface level. You say you're just being smart, just protecting yourself, just taking your time. But underneath that caution is fear. Fear of being that open again. Fear of feeling that much again. Fear of being abandoned again. And fear doesn't just stay still. It grows in silence. Jung believed that what we don't face within ourselves doesn't just disappear, it waits. It waits for a crack in your defenses. It waits for a moment of loneliness, a quiet evening, a dream you can't explain, and then it speaks. Not with words, but with feelings you thought you'd buried. Sudden sadness, unexplained guilt, anger that comes out of nowhere, numbness that follows joy. This isn't weakness. This isn't failure. This is your shadow. The part of you still holding on to something real, something raw, something you didn't fully grieve. And it's not just about the person you lost. It's about what they represented. Maybe they made you feel seen. Maybe they gave you a sense of safety. Maybe they awakened a part of you that you had never touched before. When they left, all of that disappeared too. And now it's sitting in the dark corners of your mind, waiting to be felt again. Most people don't even realize this. They go from one relationship to the next, wondering why nothing feels the same. They blame the other person, or worse, they blame themselves. But the truth is, a part of them never returned from the last goodbye, and no new love can reach you if you're still split from yourself. Jung didn't say the shadow is evil. He said it's unconscious. That means it's unknown. And what's unknown feels dangerous, but it's not danger, it's disconnection. You're not broken because you still think about them. You're not weak because your chest still aches. You're not crazy because some part of you still waits for a return. You're just human. And the human heart was never built to forget. It was built to feel, and feeling is how you heal. This is the truth. Your shadow isn't haunting you because of what was lost. It's reaching for you because of what was left behind. Inside you. A part of you that's still alive, still waiting, still worthy. And the first step toward reclaiming that part isn't forgetting the past. It's facing it. If you don't confront the part of you that still mourns, if you keep pretending the loss didn't change you, then it won't just be the memory of that person that fades. It will be your ability to feel fully, to trust, to love again in a way that's real. You won't just lose the past. You'll lose access to your own emotional depth. Carl Jung warned that what we do not make conscious comes back as fate. That means if you ignore the shadow created by loss, it won't disappear. It will find a way to live through you, quietly, subtly, destructively. You'll stay in relationships that don't touch your soul. You'll walk away from people who actually care. You'll confuse emotional safety with boredom and chemistry with chaos. And worst of all, you won't know why, because the shadow doesn't shout. It whispers through disconnection. You'll say you're tired, but it's not. Your body that's tired, it's your heart. You'll call it stress, but it's actually grief. Grief for a part of you that you've been pushing away for years. The part that still wants to believe in love. The part that still longs to be seen. The part that got hurt and never got the chance to come home. You're not protecting yourself by avoiding it. You're slowly losing yourself. And if you wait too long, you'll forget what it even feels like to be alive. When we think about heartbreak, we usually focus on the person we lost. But there's something deeper happening, something we almost never talk about. We don't just lose people, we lose parts of ourselves. And that loss gets buried, hidden away in the shadow. Carl Jung described the shadow as the place in your mind where you hide everything you can't accept about yourself. That includes anger, shame, jealousy, but it also includes love. Real love, when it ends, doesn't just leave sadness, it leaves confusion. Because love awakens a side of you that's raw, open, and deeply alive. And when that connection is suddenly gone, your mind tries to protect you. It locks away that openness to keep you from being hurt again. So what gets buried? The version of you that hoped, the version that trusted, the part that believed someone could see you and stay. That's the part of you that becomes shadow. Not because it's bad, but because it became too painful to carry in the light. Maybe you were told to be strong, to move on, to find someone new. And so you did, but a piece of you didn't come with you. That piece is still back there, stuck in a moment of pain, replaying what happened, asking, what did I do wrong? You might not hear it clearly, but it shows up in your patterns, in the way you hesitate to get close, in the way you need constant reassurance, in the way love now feels like a risk instead of a gift. This is what the shadow holds. All the parts of you that didn't get to speak, the grief that was too big to cry out loud, the longing that felt embarrassing to admit, the part of you that still aches, even years later, and doesn't know how to stop. And when these parts don't get seen, they don't go away. They just go underground. That's why time alone doesn't heal everything. You can be years away from a relationship and still feel like it ended yesterday. You can be with someone new and still be haunted by the same fear that they'll leave too. Because the wound wasn't time-based, it was soul-deep. It wasn't just a breakup, it was a break inside you. And when something breaks inside you, your mind responds by building walls. You become more careful, more distant, more in control. But those walls don't just keep others out, they keep you out too. You stop feeling as deeply. You stop dreaming as boldly. You live, but only on the surface. And deep down, a quiet part of you is still waiting to be felt. That's the tragedy of unresolved love. It doesn't just end relationships, it ends parts of ourselves. You go from being someone who loves freely to someone who watches everything from a distance. You tell yourself it's maturity, that you've learned your lesson. But what you've really learned is how to disconnect. Jung would say this isn't healing, it's fragmentation. You've split from yourself. And healing doesn't mean pretending it never happened. It means going back into the shadow and finding the version of you that got left behind. The one who cried, the one who broke, the one who needed to be held but wasn't, because that part of you is still alive, still waiting. And until you bring it back, you will always feel like something's missing, even when everything looks fine on the outside. This is why shadow work matters. Not to relive pain, but to reclaim the parts of you that pain tried to take away. When you don't deal with the shadow left behind by love and loss, it doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It starts showing up in the people you're drawn to, the ones you chase, the ones you fear, the ones you push away. Carl Jung warned about this. He said that when we don't face something inside ourselves, we project it onto others. In other words, we see outside of us what we haven't yet accepted within. And in relationships, this creates powerful, but confusing patterns. You might find yourself obsessed with someone who reminds you of a person from your past. Or maybe you keep falling for emotionally unavailable partners. Maybe you push away people who are actually good for you because being loved in a healthy way feels unfamiliar, even unsafe. These aren't random mistakes. They're signs that your shadow is choosing for you. Think about it. Why are you drawn to people who don't fully choose you? Why does chaos feel exciting and peace feel boring? Why do you crave attention from the one person who won't give it, but ignore the ones who would? These aren't just habits. They're clues. Clues that part of you is still stuck in an old emotional story. A story of love that hurt. A story of loss that never healed. Sometimes the person you can't stop thinking about isn't special because of who they are. They're special because they reflect a part of you you've buried. Maybe they remind you of the version of yourself who once felt alive. Maybe they make you feel the same way you felt before everything went wrong. Or maybe they bring up the same fear, the same ache, the same silence you never figured out. Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. This includes the people who trigger us, the ones who make us jealous, insecure, or overly attached. What are they expressing that you've silenced? Is it freedom, confidence, emotional honesty, desire without shame? The truth is, we're not always reacting to the person in front of us. We're reacting to what they represent. We're reacting to our shadow. This is why relationships feel like they repeat. You think it's just bad luck or poor timing. But what's really happening is the same unresolved wound keeps getting projected into new stories. You're not just falling in love. You're trying to complete something inside you, but it never works. Because no one else can fix a shadow you haven't claimed. The people you chase, the ones you avoid, the ones you feel addicted to, they're not here to complete you. They're here to show you what you've forgotten about yourself. Until you face the grief, the fear, the tenderness that got buried with that old love, you'll keep trying to resolve it through others, and it will never be enough. Because it's not about them, it's about you. So what happens when you stop running? When you finally turn around and face the shadow that's been following you? Something begins to shift. At first, it might feel strange, even painful. You start to feel things you've kept buried for years. The sadness you've hidden behind a smile. The longing you've drowned in distractions. The anger you've silenced in the name of peace. It all comes up, not to punish you, but to reconnect you with yourself. Carl Jung didn't say the shadow should be obeyed. He said it should be known. And once you know it, once you sit with the part of you that still aches, still hopes, still wants to be held, something powerful begins to happen. You start to reclaim your life. You realize that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without falling apart. It means holding your pain with love instead of shame. It means saying to yourself, yes, this happened. Yes, it hurt, but I'm still here, and I want to feel whole again. Integration is not about becoming a perfect version of yourself. It's about bringing all of you into the light, the strong and the soft, the fearful and the brave, the part that moved on and the part that never did. When you do that, something deep inside begins to relax. You no longer have to pretend. You no longer have to perform. This is where real love begins. Not the kind that's desperate for validation or terrified of being alone, but the kind that comes from within. Because when you meet yourself fully, you stop needing others to fill your empty spaces. You start choosing love from a place of wholeness, not fear. Your past doesn't have to define your future, but it will if you keep avoiding it. The grief you've been afraid to feel holds the key to your freedom. The love you lost still lives inside you, not to haunt you, but to remind you of your capacity to feel deeply, to care, to connect. So ask yourself, what part of me got left behind in that heartbreak? What part of me have I been afraid to face? And what would happen if I invited that part back? This doesn't mean you go back to the person, it means you go back to yourself, to the part that was open, alive, willing to love. That part deserves to return. It deserves to breathe again. And here's the truth. The shadow will not stay quiet forever. If you don't open the door, it will break through the wall. It will show up in your body, in your relationships, in the way you lose interest in everything that once mattered to you. But if you face it now, gently, honestly, courageously, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes your power, not the power to control others, the power to live without hiding, to love without losing yourself, to feel without fear. This is the work Jung was pointing toward, not perfection, but integration, the coming together of all your parts, especially the ones you left behind in moments of pain. You are not too damaged. You are not too late. You are simply unfinished, and the rest of your life begins the moment you turn inward and say, I'm ready to come home. Carl Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This is what your shadow is asking for, not to be erased, but to be seen, not to be fixed, but to be felt. You didn't just lose love. You lost parts of yourself along the way. The part that trusted, the part that felt deeply, the part that believed they were worthy of being loved fully. But those parts aren't gone. They've just been waiting, quietly, patiently, for you to come back for them. This isn't about going backward. It's about going deeper. Because the real risk isn't feeling too much, it's feeling nothing at all. Numbness is not healing. Distance is not wisdom. Avoidance is not peace. Wholeness is. And wholeness only begins when you stop pretending, when you choose to reclaim the parts of yourself that love tried to awaken and loss tried to bury. You have a choice now, to keep performing, or to finally come home to yourself. Comment below, I'm ready to reclaim what I buried. Subscribe to Psychic for more Jungian truth like this. And if you know someone who's still afraid of what's inside them, send this to them. Stop running. It's time to return.